So hi guys, good afternoon. So I will be discussing about Raymond Cattell's structure-based system theory of personality. So let's begin po. So the biographical sketch of Raymond Cattell was that he was born on 1905 in Staffordshire, England, wherein he was 9 years old when the First World War broke out. However, the war also had an impact on his development of theory, wherein in his case po, imbes na maka-apekto sa kanya yung war in a negative way, it actually influenced him pa. As we will see kasi later, he had different data for understanding or studying about personality. So, ginamit siya sa US Navy para dun sa mga positions po ng mga recruits. So, despite his interest po in pursuing science, as he had his undergraduate in chemistry and physics, his interest in social concerns led him po to pursue PhD in psychology under the supervision of Dr. Charles Spearman. So we will know kasi, di ba, si Dr. Charles Spearman, siya is a GNS factor. So, it had an influence on him for studying behavior quantitatively. As we will see later po, multivariate techniques po yung ginamit ni Raymond Cattell. So, he had an honorary doctorate of science and served as an associate to Dr. Edward Thorndike. And he contended that psychology could be studied objectively and quantitatively. So, yan po. Dami na yung nag-achievement, no? When it comes to research studies as well as doing books. Yan din po. However, mag-grant sana siya ng award 6 months before his death for a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Psychological Association, brought by his accomplishments of studying personality through quantitative means. Pero 6 months before his death, he withdrew his being a candidate for the said award kasi he was accused of racism na brought up yung issue na yun. And it was unfortunate, no, since malapit na siya mawala 6 months before he died. Nare-receive sana yun, pero he backed out eventually. So, what is personality? So, it is something that makes a prediction of what a person will do in a given situation. So, yan po. So, pinakita niya din po ito in terms of a formula. Wherein, as you can see po, no, these two variables, para siyang nasa parang ordered pair, kung sa coordinates, di ba? Then, this means that a response is a function of the person and the stimuli. So, R and S po, he contended, can be predetermined by experiments. Kaya itong P, ito yung dapat lalong aralin since this is a less well-known factor. No? And traits assist us in the understanding of the structure and function of the personality. So, ayan. May interplay po between our traits and the environment. And Cattell actually contended that while our traits tends to be innate, there are also components of our traits na na-influence ng ating environment. So what are traits? So these are the relatively permanent reaction tendencies that serves as a basic structure of the personality. Take note of the word relatively permanent. Kumbaga, dito niya talaga in-acknowledge na while that some of our traits can be innate, some of these traits can be modified by the environment. So, Cattell had enumerated different kinds of traits. First is the common traits, which are shared by almost everybody. May kita yan halos sa lahat. And also, we have unique traits, or sa iilan lang. So, for example, is intelligence. So, while everyone has intelligence, meron din pong, di ba, different levels of intelligence. Yung sa mga nasa 3 standard deviations above the mean or below the mean. Yung mga gifted or sa mga may mental retardation or intellectual disabilities. So, yun yung parang example ng common and unique traits. Next, we have the ability traits, which enables us to work toward a goal. Temperament traits is the general way of responding. So, temperament traits, we can be cool, calm, collected, or in other terms, you can go from 0 to 100 quickly. Dynamic traits are the driving forces of our behaviors, and this includes that ergs are the basic units of motivation. Wherein, etong kasing ergs na to, he derived it from Freudian psychoanalysis, no? So, he identified 10 basic ergs: food, mating, gregariousness, parental protectiveness, exploration, escape to security, self-assertion, narcissistic sex, perniacity, and acquisitiveness. So this is actually concept related to the concept of a drive reduction, wherein our personality, yun nga, kapag kay Freud, dapat may nasa-satisfy. So itong mga ergs na to, once na merong mechanism to reduce it, mawawala din siya eventually. For example, kapag gutom yung infant po, no? So, iiyak ang infant, he had the urge of acquisitiveness. Pero kapag nabigyan na ng mother ng breast milk, yan na, masisis din yan, mawawala din yan. Yung pag-iyak-iyak. Next is the sentiments, which are environmental mold traits, motivating behavior. So, yan po, may influences siya. Pero it is also influenced by our attitudes in a process called subsidiation. And itong interactions ng ergs, sentiments, and attitudes can be represented through means of a dynamic lattice. Magulo siya tignan, itong dynamic lattice, as you can see. Pero it provides us a detail on the gives us a detail on the complexity of our personality. For example, let's say anger. As related siya dito sa political behavior, no? So, kung may isang kumandidato, galit sa isang kandidato, generalize sa political party, yan yung sentiment, ito yung erg, ito yung sentiment, then, itong pagboto for the other candidate, yan, during election, yan yung attitude. So, what are traits? Other traits po na identify ni Cattell is the surface traits or those that do not constitute a factor. Pero these surface traits, call this, they are observable and go together po. They correlate, but they do not have a factor again. So, for example, honesty and integrity. Honesty and integrity are separate components of personality, pero they are not correlated into one factor kung tutuusin sa factor analysis. Next is the source traits, which are the unitary, stable, and permanent characteristics, and which determines the manifestation of the surface traits. For example, in one of the 16 source traits na identify ni Cattell, which we will know later, one of them is rule consciousness. Kung mataas ang rule consciousness ng isang tao, he will value honesty and personal integrity. This may be influenced by both the heredity and the environment. Next, we have the constitutional traits po, which have biological components, but not necessarily innate. For example po yung sa addiction, the way they function po, no? So, once an addicted individual functions, slurred speech, for example, or kakaiba sa mental state. So, yung pinapakita niyang trait is constitutional because it has biological underpinnings po na na-alter yung neurological functioning niya. Kaya, na-alter yung behavior niya. Pero, it is not necessarily innate. Lastly, we have the environmental mood traits or yung mga nakuha po natin sa ating paligid. Okay? Next is factor analysis. So, factor analysis is actually a multivariate statistical technique, no? It aims to reduce the different dimensions. So, parang may nabasa ako, guys, that Allport and Cattell, they had a meeting. Let's say, for example, kung yun yung mga na-identify na traits, no? From the letters of Jenny. So, kumbaga, parang 400 per 1,000, merong given na value. Pero Cattell was able to reduce them into 16 factors. Yung mga traits na na-identify ni Allport. So, he did this by doing specific observations and quantifying those. Then, we determined the correlation coefficients and the intercorrelations. Then, we derive factors of small amounts. And, finally, itong factor loading na to is the correlation of scores within factors. So, there are two factor analytic techniques on his own end. First is the R technique, which is about testing a large group of participants through variety personality tests, and they will intercorrelate, no? And the P technique is aimed at the tree structure of a single individual. So, Cattell also made use of factor rotations. So, yan po yung ginagamit po ng ibang tree theories. As you will see, the orthogonal rotation, as the x variable increases, y may have any value. So, therefore, there is a minimal covariation or any presence of correlation po, no? And, on the other hand, oblique rotation, yan ang ginamit ni Cattell. It allows covariation and correlation between the factors. So, ito po yung example ng isang factor analytic study sa SPSS, no? So, there are 12 factors. Then, yan, initial eigenvalues, kinuha yan, in-extract. Tapos, in-extract din, yan, ni-rotate, i-identified 3. Tapos, ito namang mga to, mga factors na to, depende dun sa lalabas na factor loadings, para siyang correlation coefficient din eh. Pwedeng, kunwari, for example, si 4, may correlation coefficient dito, may correlation coefficient dito, and correlation coefficient dito. So, yan po. Kung saan mataas yung correlation coefficient ni 4, whether 1, 2, or 3, dun siya under. Okay? So, as a result of Cattell's factor analytic study, he identified the 16 source traits. So, yan po yung ginagamit na pang-interpret po with his test known as the 16PF or the 16 personality factor. Take note, ngunit mababa ang score, it doesn't mean deficiency. Ngunit mataas ang score, it does not mean overperformance. Yan. Kundi, it is about how we are confronted with the challenges. So, ayan po. For example, guys, as a college student may have a high score in social boldness. Maganda ang social boldness when it comes to getting to know, no? Especially when it comes to the involvement with the student government. Ito pa yung adventuresome or explore, ganyan. However, nakakasama ito kapag sumobra, di ba? Parang bumabagsak na. So, ganun po. Also, itong mga 16 source traits na po na ito, he was able to reduce them into 5 second-order factors. Okay. So, as you will see, guys, dito sa trait theories as we progress, Allport was able to identify many traits as much as possible. Cattell used factor analysis, which he pioneered, no, sa mga succeeding trait theories na yun na nga, naging 5 and eventually naging 3 kay Eysenck. Yan po. So, a kinetic model assumes that our behavior is a result of the complex interaction and subtle interplay between traits and the situations. And Cattell constructed a taxonomy of situations or environment or kasi itong econetic model ito, it served as a way to compensate for the shortcomings of the trait theories wherein nire-neglect yung role ng environment. Kaya nga, eco po. Yan. So, Cattell did not did not minimize the role of the environment as influence. So, yan po. Another application is dynamic calculus. Kumbaga, it helps us to predict the human performance. Etong R, or response. So, nakikita din po natin para siyang multiple regression equation. Yan, ito yung slope or yung weights, no? Then, ito yung score doon sa intercept. Yan po. Tapos, shift lang natin yung value, ganyan. Okay? So, Cattell also contended that linear equation is helpful when it comes to predicting our behavior. Okay. Then, when it comes to the issue of heredity and environmental influences, he conducted a study among twins, and he contended that heredity played its role on the basis of maturity. Pero, as we grow older, mas mag-rely yung development natin dun po sa environment. Ayan. So, intelligence is inherited, emotional responses are learned, parents have a significant influence clearly, and he supported Adler's theory dun po sa oldest child, wherein if the oldest child is high in terms of strength, of ego strength and dominance. So, in his stages of development po, during infancy, he agreed with Freud that this phase is all about the development of the ego and the superego in order to maximize its long-term satisfaction. During 6 to 14 years of age, yan na po, the established relationship with peers. Pero, they also aim to strengthen their egos. 14 to 23 is the onset of puberty, and yun nga, troublesome itong adolescence. However, this is also a period for them to be able to develop altruistic attitudes or make contributions to society. Next is maturity, is where we become productive. Yan po. Kung ano yung aspirations natin during adolescence, i-compensate natin, gagawin natin for during this maturity. The late maturity is the development in response to the changes. And magde-decline na, kailangan mo na mag-adjust dahil tumatanda na. And lastly is the old age. Ito yung mga nagkakawala-wala na. Wala na mga kaibigan mo, ganyan. So, yun. In terms of abnormal behavior, he believed that neurosis is manifested by clients who come to a clinic due to emotional difficulties. So, definitely may mga various antecedent factors. And also with psychosis, no? They lack ego strength, pessimistic, kumbaga, separated na sila from the environment. They are detached. So, therefore, it has implications with the loss of contact with reality na kailangan in-hospitalize sila. Okay? So, yan po. Assessment in Cattell's theory, yan po yung tinutukoy ko kanina, yung ginagamit niya po sa US Navy in filling the positions. We have L, or the life records, Q, questionnaires, wherein the subjects rate themselves, and the test data, which are the personality tests. However, take note, itong questionnaires, they are subjective in nature. Therefore, he is using T-data to compensate for the subjectivity. Siyempre, pwedeng self-serving bias. Naging possible yan. Pero, once na nag-gather ng objective data, hindi mo compensate mo in understanding the person. So, what is rating Cattell's theory about? So, does it generate research? Yes, 5. Why 5? Kasi sa dynamic calculus niya, he contended that we can modify or abandon those na na-identify doon sa formula. Next is falsifiable is 5. Siyempre, since he gave room for generating research, pwede ma-falsify yun. Pati yung mga factors niya na later run is still relevant today. Next is organize explain 3. While his theory may be useful when it comes to the understanding of the different traits and explaining it and how it is imitated, medyo may some complications pa rin when it comes to understanding. Does it offer practical solution? No. 1. Kasi he's more on predicting Wala siyang in-offer na solution sa how to reduce. Pag mataas ka, ganun lang. Mababa ka, ganun lang. Paano mo maintain yung optimal for normal functioning? Next is, internally consistent is 2. Bakit? Kasi he recognized the fact that our traits has a biological nature, pero hindi masyado in-explore, no? And lastly, parsimonious is one. Since yun nga, given though considerable naman na though na-appreciate ko din may effort na gumamit siya ng multivariate statistics, pero you cannot if you want to comprehend the theory of personality, then it's like more on how we're influenced with the environment as opposed to how these traits, the 16 much play a role, no? So, yun lang po. And, therefore, itong rating ko, mas more on siya on determinism kasi he did not provide how we may be a responsive agent, or an active agent or environment. Also, with unconscious. Basta lang tayo na-influence sa environment natin. Kumbaga, paano din tayo maging conscious sa environment natin, di ba? Kaya siyang, and pessimistic. Ayan nga. We don't have the, free will, definitely. Pessimistic din. Therefore, nasa causality din siya sa side of personality. Kasi, parang mechanistic yung view niya talaga, in my understanding. Also, when it comes to the nature versus nurture debate, yan po. Nasa midpoint siya. I-recognize na merong biological components ang traits and meron ding environmental components ng traits na mo-modify. And lastly, uniqueness universality, midpoint. Again, is sa common traits na sinashare ng ibang tao and doon sa unique traits na sinashare ng ilan. So, yun po guys. So, sorry if I'm not present po for this meeting. So, if you have questions, feel free to message me through whatever platform na. And, yun nga po, ingat po palagi.